The Remarkable People Podcast. Check it out. The Remarkable People Podcast. Listen, do, repeat. For life.
Hello, friends. Welcome to this week's Remarkable Podcast and special episode. We are at episode 100 of the podcast. And not only is it episode 100, but ironically, we're recording 2 days after our 3-year anniversary. So to commemorate this milestone, we have Intern Casey with us. Casey, how are you today, brother?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing well, and I'm glad you're on this side of the camera with me this week. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know most of you around the world, God has blessed our podcast. We are getting to help people all over the world. We're in over 105 countries. Like I said, we've been doing this for 3 years now, actively for 2. We have the 100th episode releasing, and we already have about 3 months worth of content just waiting to be released. And we're so thankful you're part of our community. So in this episode, Intern Casey gets to be not only behind the scenes, but in front of the camera. So if you're used to checking out our podcast on the podcast directory side, whether through Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, or anything, check out the YouTube version so you can actually meet Intern Casey, see this handsome fella, and get to experience a different format of the show. And again, we're just going to have fun in this episode. We're going to hopefully bring you content that still has value. But next week, we're going to pick right back up with our remarkable guest in episode 101. So Casey, at this time, you had some questions ready for us. I have no idea what Intern Casey's going to ask. This is live, no edits, because he's obviously here. He can't edit for me. So Casey, what do you have for us today, brother?
Well, let's start off with your background. Like, how did you become the man you are today?
Oh, man. Well,
this is live, so I can throw you right into it.
How far back do you want me to go?
Let's start at the beginning, like we do in every podcast.
All right. So I was born in Massachusetts. My mom was single, not married. My dad didn't have anything to do with us. And I grew up with my mom and my grandmom for the first 4.5 years. And then from there, I went through life kind of alone, had a lot of struggles, thankful to God. But my grandmom died when I was 4.5, and she was a lot of stability in my life. And then as time went on, I kind of was just trying to search for meaning, search for truth, find stability. And my mom loved me a lot, but she had her own demons she was battling. So she was in her own place in her own world. And I kind of was alone a lot. And then we didn't have a lot of money. We grew up American standard poor. And, you know, there was the problems with that growing up, like going to school with the welfare tickets for lunch and kids making fun of you. And, you know, I was kind of chubby and had acne. And so you had the normal problems. Then we also had some, you know, issues at home. Then as I grew up in my teens, I was always sick and I was really losing my mind. I was actually losing a grip on reality because I knew I was sick, but doctors kept telling me I was fine. And then when I was 15, I started going to church because I was just losing it. And then the pastor would tell me about God and I'd listen, I'd read my Bible. And that's at the point where I trusted Christ as my savior, where I saw, wow, the Bible's real. Everything I see in life, everything I hear, everything I filter, all the answers are in the Bible. And that like 180 degrees changed my life. And from there, all the just anxieties and twisted mental thoughts I was feeling because, you know, I'm sitting there in bed sick for days and the doctors are telling me nothing's wrong. I just had confidence in Christ that no matter what's going on, God's got me. And then when I'm 18, they find out it was in my head. It was called a tumor and it was growing there for years. And the dirtbag doctors at that time didn't find it because, like I said, my mom, I love her. She loved me. But she was always sick and depressed and had her own medical issues. So the doctors thought it was like, I think it's called Munchausen, where the mom uses the kid to get attention. And so they thought I was making it up. The long story short, I had a tumor in my head for years, and ended up 3 weeks before I graduated from high school, they found it. And a week after I graduated, I had surgery. They wanted to do it immediately because they thought I was going to die. But I was like, I've had it this long. What's another month? I want to graduate from high school.
Mhm.
So I graduate from high school, have surgery. They take a tumor out the size of an orange with a tail down my throat, grows back 2 months later. And they're like, that's impossible. So then they take it out again and it grows back. And that's a huge story because I should have died. They said you have like, you know, at least a 50% chance of death. Then you have a 90% chance of disfiguration. Then you have a like 75% chance of mental retardation. And they just kept going on. I'm like, I don't care. I know God. I have his confidence. Now that you found it, I'm super happy because I know I'm not going crazy. And I'm 18. I'm a legal adult. And in Massachusetts at that time, they have the welfare system. I hated being on welfare growing up, but the intent of welfare is you get on welfare, use it for when you need it, and then you get on your feet and get off welfare. Well, when I turned 18, I immediately had nothing. So they put me in the system. And what happened was I got the world's greatest doctor, Dr. William Montgomery, and he did my surgery. So he took it out and it grew back, and he took it out and it grew back. And I can talk about it another time, but each surgery is a miracle of God. And they didn't have to disfigure me. I obviously didn't die. And the only side effects I have from the surgeries is I've never felt hunger since after the second surgery, it grew back again. So I have radiation. When I had radiation therapy, it just started shrinking, shrinking, shrinking. To this day, I haven't had a problem with it. Thanks to God, the radiation and a special diet I went on. The diet had no dairy and no sugar for 2 years. And I mean nothing, not in bread, not in ketchup, nothing. So pulling sugar and dairy and all those toxins out of my body, having radiation, everything got better. The only problem is one day they missed with the radiation and they fried part of my brain. So to this day, I don't feel hunger. So if we're sitting there working and talking and hanging out, I'll just all of a sudden start getting like real tired. And it's like, oh, I need to eat. So I don't feel hunger like normal people. And then I am physically slower. Most people don't know it, but like I used to be physically fast and now I'm slow. So it's just part of life. But other than that, I'm still alive and kicking. So then after that, went on with life, had 2 awesome children. And then in my mid 30s, following God, I was working in Northwest of America, the Pacific Northwest, and I was selling less lethal weapons and body armor. And then I got some bad dental work in 2005.
Wait, let's go back.
Yeah.
And didn't you sell some tanks to the Seattle?
No, okay. The company I worked for at the time, they had multiple companies and divisions, and the Seattle SWAT at one point needed a tank for their SWAT team. So we got them hooked up with our division. So they bought a couple tanks from us.
So you sold them a tank.
I didn't personally, but I referred them to the other division of our company, and they got what they needed so they can take care of business. So you need a couple of tanks when you're on the SWAT team. And then, but I specialize in less lethal weapons and body armor. So that means everything from holsters and batons to, well, chemical munitions and grenade launchers. So if there was a riot, there was actually a small riot in one state, and I drove up to the law enforcement. I said, hey, take what you need. And they just pulled it out of the back of my Tundra and went to town and took care of business. So I had a pretty cool job. And in 2005, I had dental work and I was in constant pain, starting getting sick, like stomach aches and headaches and nerve pain. So I went for 2 years and they didn't know what was wrong with me. And I kept saying it, start with dental work, start with dental work. And then in 2007, God called us to Pensacola Christian to teach there. So I immediately left my job. There's a whole story behind that too, with I didn't obey at first, and then my house got robbed. Oh my God, I'm sorry. got that right. Came down to Pensacola Christian to teach. And on the way over, I collapsed in Texas. Like we drove cross country. I had a blood infection. So I went from normal Dave to 140 pounds, I think. And the doctors, after like a year, agony, literally everyday agony, they're like, get your affairs in order, you're dying, whatever. And then I'm like, well, if I'm going to die, like, send me to the Mayo Clinic. So they send me to the Mayo Clinic. I go up there, they do all these tests, but in 1 week, they found out what was wrong. And guess what? It was the tooth. The stupid dentist from the Northwest put an infection in my face. The infection hit a nerve, was just lighting me up where I was in pain all the time, but then simultaneously it was poisoning me. So I ended up being sick, losing my gallbladder, having all sorts of issues. So they go in, they take out a couple of teeth, they scrape out the spot. I had diagnosed with trigeminal neuralgia, and they told me not to take out the teeth, but I'm like, if I'm dying my way. Forget chances. Let's just do this. Kill me faster, or I'm going to live. Thank God I lived. And so anyway, so I got those out, started getting better, fat again, right? Back up 218 as of this morning. And I haven't worked out since 2018. So we got all that going on. And then after, in 2010, I left the college, which was fantastic. And I just started working locally as a consultant for sales and marketing. And then we just kept growing. And then in 2019, God lays in my heart to start a podcast. I even know what a podcast was. I didn't listen to podcasts. I've never interviewed anybody before, but he's like, you need to start this podcast and you need to interview Cisco. So if you listen to Cisco's episode, I explained how I met Cisco at the fights and how I ended up just saying, hey man, you want to be on a podcast? He's like, what's a podcast? I'm like, it's like an interview. I don't know what I'm doing, but let's do it. So we did it. So if you go back to episode 2, that's my first interview. And then we kind of bumped around for a few months. And then in December of 2019, we really got serious. And it's been a weekly show ever since. We've taken some breaks for seasons, and now we're in season 5. Casey's been our intern since, you can see his t-shirt, since season 2. And he was doing it way back before we had video, and he was hand doing everything on some audio programs. And now he does audio and video. So he's taking it to the next level. So that's it. That's the story in a nutshell. And now I'm just happy. I got 2 great teens, an 18-year-old daughter, a 19-year-old son. I live in a condo on the beach, thanks to God. Behind those curtains, there's a picture you're going to see right here. Boop, picture of me and Casey. That's a real picture. That's not Photoshop. That's my backyard. We always shut these blinds, but that's what's behind the curtain, right? Behind Oz. So does that answer your question, man?
Yeah, it does. It does. You just did the whole interview in like 14 minutes there.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's a lot to dig into. So you can ask any specific questions you want. I get shy. So I interview people, and I love interviewing people. I make friends across the world, and we have them share their value with the audience. But for my story, I get shy. So, I mean, really, if I had to boil down everything, God's there. He's real. Even in the darkest day, everything turns around as soon as you realize, like, hey, God loves me. God's not vindictive. He's not, merciless. If I'm going through this, he's not causing it, but he's allowing it. And if he's allowing it, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever the attack is on you, it doesn't matter, because if God's allowing that piece of trash, Satan, to do it, and saying you're a piece of trash, you know it. All the angels that chose him are demons, and they're pieces of trash, and they're all going to burn forever in the lake of fire. And they target me and you and Casey and anybody trying to serve God. And people give a lot of attention to Satan. Yeah, Satan can kick Dave Pasqualone's butt, but he can't kick God's butt. And it says, greater is he that's in you, meaning the Holy Spirit, God, than he that's in the world, means all of Satan. So there's more good in us as Christians, more power of God inside of us than there is all evil in the world. And that's why I can go boop to Satan. And Casey just put a funny black thing. I didn't actually really put a finger up, but seriously, like, let's go Joe Biden, or let's go Brandon, let's go Satan. It's just like, forget him. We'll mark this explicit.
We'll mark, yeah, unsafe for kids, as YouTube likes it.
Yeah. So what else? What else are you going to
I want to go back into you being called to Pensacola Christian College, because that's like the first time you've been called to do something. That's what it sounds like. You being called, tell us how that process happened and the decision to move, and walk us through that a little bit.
Okay, it's a good story. So the only thing I'd say is that's not the first time. I mean, once you become a Christian, the Holy Spirit indwells you. When we pray, we talk to God. When we read our Bible, or through just the leading of the Holy Spirit, God talks to us. So my whole life, I've just tried to have a real dialogue with God because there's no purpose of lying. He knows us. He knows who we are. And you can BS everybody. You can even BS yourself, but you can't bluff God. So my whole life, I try to have a dialogue with God. And if I'm making decisions, I'm praying that, okay, if I'm wrong, God, please, I'm going to move this direction, but if I'm wrong, please change my course. So in 2007, it was actually 2006. I'm working for the armor company, and it was a fantastic company, fantastic job, fantastic people. To be quite blunt, it was most people's dream job. And I'm sitting there, and I was in, I want to say it was North Dakota. It was North Dakota, Wyoming. It was a Midwestern state. And I'm working out because, you know, when you travel a lot, when you do sales, you're on planes, trains, automobiles, you're still all the time and you're eating out all the time. So you want to move when you're in those hotels. And when I'm sitting there working out in the gym, the VP came in. One of the VPs came in. There's multiple VPs in large companies. And we're talking, and, you know, back then I'm in my early 30s, and he's like, dude, he's like, in just a few years, you're going to be a VP here. And that equates to, number one, huge honor. Number two, huge amounts of money. And, you know, it's a great life. And when he said that, I immediately was like, empty. Now, most people would have been elated, and I was empty. So I started praying to God about what he wanted me to do. And the idea came through to teach. Now, I've never taught in my life. Frankly, I wasn't a good student. Okay. I barely made it through high school. College, I kind of bumped by because I didn't care. I just wanted the degree. Later, I went on to get a master's and took it seriously and got a 3.98. You know what I mean? The 0.02, you know who did it. The tests were bad, and even the school admitted it. So I could have had a 4.0. That's a subject. That's a sore subject. But anyways, no, I'm just kidding. The chair wrote the test for the one class I took, and everybody was flunking. And it was this known issue with the school. And they're like, yeah, we're fixing it next semester. And I'm like, well, what about us in this semester? So anyways, go back. I just derailed, but that's how I am if you know me. So
very much so.
It's 2006, and I'm praying to God, and I'm not sharing with anybody. I'm just trying to keep it between God and I to have direction. And I'm like, wow, I just got offered an incredible, like, future, and I don't want anything to do with it. So I'm like, God, what do you want me to do? And I start reading and hearing teaching, and I'm like, what? And then I end up flying back home, and as I get off the plane, we lived in a town in northern Washington state called Cedar-Woolley. And I think at that point we actually moved to Mount Vernon. And it was about an hour and a half north of Seattle. So I flew into Seattle, and at that time my wife, she was driving. I was in the passenger seat. The kids were in the back sleeping in their car seats. That's how little they were. And when they were sleeping, I don't know what happened or why, but my wife at that time said, have you ever thought about teaching? And I just was like, whoa.
Oh, I love when that happens.
And by that point, I specifically, this is kind of weird. I wasn't ready for this question. So all the facts, you know, everything's coming back. But I specifically felt led to go to Pensacola Christian to teach by that point. And my wife was like, have you ever thought about teaching? And I'm like, what made you ask that? She's like, I don't know. I just been thinking about it all this week. And I'm like, oh. So I'm like, okay, well, we gotta have a real talk then. Because, you know, we had a comfortable life, made a lot of money, had a lot of fun. I mean, my kids are 4 or 5 years old shooting grenade launchers. I mean, it's pretty fun stuff, right? So I'm like, hey, well, I actually feel like I should be teaching, and specifically at Pensacola Christian. And her face turned white. So that's when in 2006, we were being led by God, both of us, like, hey, you're supposed to be teaching, supposed to be teaching in Pensacola Christian. So I'm like, okay, well, if we're going to do this, you know, we got to, you know, think about it, pray about it. I'm just basically making excuses because there's a big switch in making money as a teacher. I paid more in taxes than I'd make teaching at the college. You know what I mean? So when this was all going on, I was kind of dragging my feet. Well, now I felt that if I didn't make this decision and move by January 1st, I needed to make it by January 1st. It wasn't like a threat of God, but it was like, I want you there by January 1st. Well, I didn't take action. And again, all the details, I'd have to go back and look at my notes. God bless you, Maeve. But I didn't take action. And on January 2nd, I left for Canada to go to sell weapons. So I was going north to sell weapons, and I finished early, so I came down. My wife called me hysterical. Again, my wife at the time called me hysterical. It's like someone broke into our house. And I just was happening. I was only 20 minutes away. So I went north, I came back, I was only 20 minutes away, and I was heading down to South Oregon. So I pulled over, came in, actually beat the cops there. And all they did is they kicked in our door. We just moved into that house 2 weeks earlier, so they were casing our house. I had a duffel bag with everything from the safety deposit box from when we moved banks, because we moved across town, threw it in the safe. And guess what the only thing they took was? The safe. So they took the guns, they took jewelry, they took cash, and they took all of our documentation. So social security cards, birth certificates, passports, our family's passports. And I was like, I knew this happened because I wasn't obedient. And then I prayed and I said, God, it would be a miracle, because the cops are like, there's no way you'll get this stuff back, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't care about anything except the documents, because identity theft's a nightmare. And I was like, I just want the peace of mind knowing we have all that back. So I pleaded with God and prayed with God, and our friends and our church members prayed. And 6 days later, we get a call from the sheriff's department that it just so happens the sheriff went by before a storm. Somebody apparently took the safe, beat it open, took what they want out, and threw the safe into the Skagit River. Okay. When the safe went in the Skagit River, it slammed the lid shut and stuck. So the sheriff that was there for another reason saw something shiny, went in, took the safe out, and then together we got a crowbar. They knew it was mine. We got a crowbar and opened it. Guns, cash, jewelry, all gone, but all of our paperwork was safely in there. 100% of it. So at that point, I'm like, God, whatever you want, you have all the power. We're following you. So I said to my ex-wife, I said, hey, we need to get serious about this. Let's make a list of all the things that need to happen. And the list had, I think it was like, I probably have it somewhere, but it had like 16 things that would have to happen for us to be able to move to Pensacola. Okay. And all of them happened in like 30 days. Like, it was impossible for that stuff to happen, even selling a house. And it was just like, done, 30 days. So then we end up moving to Pensacola. And then that was in that 2007 where I said on the way down, I collapsed and got sick. So we moved, we're being obedient to God. And during that time I collapsed and I'm sick for 2 years. Like, I was in pain for 2 years, light, mild, getting stomach aches, but then I'm talking every day, very serious pain, very serious sickness, dropped down to 140 pounds. It was terrible. So, but I knew it was God's will. And what happens when you're following God? You get attacked by Satan. So I knew it was only temporary. And I knew that Satan was doing his best to derail us. So my job is just to keep following God. That's what we did.
It reminds me of the story of Jonah and the whale.
Yeah.
Well, except you're getting eaten actually by a whale, but it's definitely a symbol that stuff happens. Yeah. Because if you didn't know, it's really hard because the Hebrew, but the Hebrew always points to, even like the sailors were like, this is your God doing that and you're still here. So they almost kicked them off the boat for that. And we look at this picture of you gotta go. You gotta go. Otherwise he'll make you go. Just like what happened with David here. If you don't go, he'll make you go.
And it's what's best for you. It's what's best for you. It's when you'll be happiness. It's when everything will be like at most peace in your heart. Circumstances can be variable, but your peace in your heart is, oh, so good when you're following Christ. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Then you got the prophet Isaiah wrote the book of Isaiah. It's a pretty long book. I'm pretty sure it's like 30 chapters, maybe. That's off the top of my head. But in there in the beginning, it talks about, I'm pretty sure it talks about he doesn't want to go. Right. So he refuses, and then it says the Lord came upon me with a strong hand. So literally the Lord picked him up and said, you're gonna go. You're gonna go. Well, and he was like, nah, I don't want to go. Just like we saw Jonah. And eventually he got to a point where he just had to go, you know, otherwise he was gonna like lose it. So it's kind of happened to you. Similar thing kind of happened to me, but yours is a lot more extreme. I didn't have all my precious documents thrown into a river just to get them recovered 6 days later.
Yeah, I mean, it all happens differently for everybody. And, you know, we're skipping a lot of parts of our lives, and you're listening. You probably had way harsher things happen. But I mean, there's highs and lows for everybody. And our job is just to follow God, love others, be there for each other when we can. Don't be the dummy like Job's friends, but be the loving guide that God intended us to be for each other. And, you know, like I said, we haven't covered a lot of it because it's a whole life, but it's a lot of dark times that and hardships that we've had to face, but we get through them, and you will too. And then Casey, your life is just starting, so you'll have great times and a little bit of challenges. It's just part of life.
As long as my safe isn't thrown into a river.
Oh, that was the easy one.
That was the easy?
That was the easy, man. I mean, you don't want to have identity theft, period, but you certainly don't want to have your entire families and friends who trust you because you're the responsible one, and everybody's passports and birth certificates are stolen. It's just a nightmare. The government protects everybody that's not innocent. You know what I mean? They protect the convicts, they protect the criminals, they protect the people coming in our country illegally. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have immigration. My family came here from Italy, and I'm so thankful to be an American. They were too. But when people come over illegally and wrong, and that's what I'm talking about. But our country doesn't protect people from identity theft. I mean, they're like, oh, too bad, so sad. Have fun.
Yeah.
And it's just a big issue. So that was back then. They might have more resources now, but in 2007, it was like, tough luck, so sad, have a good day.
Yeah. This was in 2007. If that happened today, oh, you know, all your stuff would have been gone. It would be on the black market in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I'm just
take
glad.
A picture and be like, oh, there you go.
I'm just glad I had dumb criminals and with little feet.
Little feet?
The person who kicked in my door had like a size like 8 child shoe. I was like, if I see somebody with small feet by my house, they're going down.
Well, good thing I'm a size 10.
Yeah,
I'm not a size 8, 7.
Yeah.
I can imagine there's just like a little footprint in the door. It's like, did a hobbit break in?
Yeah, trust me, a reporter came. I actually have a picture of it. I was on the front page of the local newspaper, and the dude was walking through my yard after. And, you know, there's a high statistic probability that criminals come back within the first week after they rob your house because you don't typically have enough time to get an alarm system put in. And they get the stuff they missed the first time. Well, I had an alarm system put in the next day, but the dude came in my yard and I didn't know who it was. And he was sitting there walking around, and I came up with a shovel and I pinned him against his truck. And he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, I'm a reporter. I wanted to run a story. I'm like, what are you doing in my yard? And we ended up becoming friends, but I literally had him pinned against his truck with a shovel, and I was ready to push. So you don't need a gun. You don't need a fork. You can use a shovel. All sorts of anything can be a weapon. A magazine can be a weapon. And I'm not for violence, but I'm against stupid morons. And here's a little plug-in for the rights of Americans. If you take away the Second Amendment and take the guns away of the honest people, only the criminals have guns. So don't be a moron. Everybody should have guns so the bad people don't use theirs. There you go. Think on that.
Yeah, we can all have shovels instead.
Yeah, listen, that's so stupid. I've been on a plane where my buddy had an American flag pin, and they told him he had to take it off because it was a weapon. And no joke, the seat in front of us, there was an old lady with knitting needles that were 2 feet long. She could have stabbed through the chair and killed somebody. I'm like, this is a broken system.
This is an old lady.
So yeah, she's sitting there and doesn't matter.
Inconspicuous.
You're stereotyping, Casey.
Of course I'm stereotyping.
It's a stereotype.
It's statistical, okay? Listen, old ladies typically don't stab people.
Listen, if a bomb goes off and they say an Italian American is suspected to do it, I should be being pulled over because I fit the profile. So if you are in a place and they say an Irishman or someone from Ghana or someone from Singapore, well, obviously you start pulling those people over who fit that profile. It's not stereotyping, it's logic. So anyways, we're really derailing here, but I love everybody. There's one race, the human race. The people who tell you we're different races are the people who are trying to divide you. I bleed red. It's actually blue, but when it hits oxygen, it turns red. All of us bleed red. And God made us all, and God loves us all. There's different nations, there's different cultures, but there's only one race, the human race. Now, stereotypes, are they stereotypes or are they true? Are Italians passionate people? Yes. Are blank blank? Maybe. But anyways, all I'm saying is if somebody comes in my yard, I don't care if it's a gun, a rock, a shovel, they're not going to hurt my family if I'm around.
I mean, that. See, but I'm, I can be conscripted being 19, but I can't have a firearm till I'm 21.
Yeah, you can go serve the country.
You can serve at 16, right?
If you have parents, no, I think you can go in as a minor in some cases if you have parental blessing, but it's 18. So you can join the service and serve your country and die for your country at 18, but you can't have a beer till you're 21. But now weed is the wonder drug. You can have all sorts of weed and you're fine. I'm not advocating weed here. I'm being sarcastic because once the government figured out how to monetize weed, it became the miracle drug and they want everybody to buy it. So you're getting all sorts of content. I don't know if my numbers on the podcast are going to raise or drop after this episode, but hey, we're being real.
They're gonna go do this.
Nah.
Oh wait, YouTube already hates you. YouTube and us, all the Sprout, Apple Podcast,
Apple shadow ban on Apple, and I have emails from them saying we are.
Yes.
So go ahead. So it's not really shadow ban; it's banned. It's just banned. We don't like you, so we reserve the right to delete your reviews. But go on. What else you got for us today?
See. What did you start teaching at college? I don't think you went over that.
I taught marketing, sales, management, public relations, interview skills.
Okay. Let's go back. You said we can go to episode 2, but why don't you just go ahead and tell us what really made you start the podcast besides that family? Give us some more insight into that segment. Okay. Yeah. How was it like? What was the setup looking like? Was it like a small business kind of environment? Because we do interview a lot of small business people and we want to know how similar your story is to theirs.
Yeah, no. So I truly love God and I truly love people and I want to help people. And when we were just through my whole life, it's like, okay, how can I help more people? How can I help more people? And with the internet, you're out there. You get the whole world. Like I said, we started off just to see what happens. And now we're in 105 countries and we're not doing anything for marketing. And I'm a marketing guy. It's just organic. It's so beautiful. Well, when I was sitting at that fight, inside, I heard that still small voice of God saying, go talk to that guy. So I talked to that guy and he ends up being an 8-time world kickboxing champion. And then I start talking to him. And then I felt God saying, you need to interview him. I'm like, I don't even know I've never interviewed anybody in my life. What are you talking about? I don't have a show, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, you need to start a podcast. So then I'm like, what? So I'm sitting there doing that arguing with God where I'm, reading and praying, and then he's giving me answers and then I'm rejecting them, right? So stupid. But anyways, when I finally submitted, I met somebody else and he said, you need to interview her too. Once I asked her and then she said, yes, then I went back and I got in the car. I said, hey, Cisco. And that's where it all went from there. So my true motivation is just to help people grow. When you read the podcast description, it says to glorify God by helping people grow. That's what it is, man. It's like the best thing is when I get to help people or connect them with someone else who's going to help them. And we get feedback like, hey, I listened to that episode and it just changed my life. Those are just fantastic moments. So that's why I do it. We don't get paid. We don't do it for money. We put a lot of time in. I put time in. Casey puts time in. I mean, I put in probably 10 to 15 hours a week on the podcast, and we're not even doing a fraction of what we could be doing. I mean, I wish this was a full-time thing, but what do you put in?
It depends how well the video wants to behave for the processing. Sometimes it'll give me like 2 errors. Like, I just uploaded this twice.
But I mean, Casey's a full-time student. He does an internship at a church. He's got his own life, and you're still putting what, 5 hours a weekend?
Oh, like 7.
7. Okay, 7.
So like let's say yesterday, Saturday, I was working on it to like 3 to 10. Just most of it's babysitting the processing, but I go through, make sure all the ums and stuff is out. I listen to it. I do all that fun stuff. And that was before we had a program called The Script. The Script is awesome. It's not a plug from The Script. I highly recommend.
We'll put a link in the show notes.
No, not sponsored at all for legal reasons. It's not sponsored, but it's awesome. It means I can put those weird images in. Like if you said put something here, I can put something here.
We're gonna put a spinning basketball.
Hey, wait, that's a lot harder to put in. I don't know how to put that in. I'm not educated at all. I'm just some random kid off the street that he picked up. I was abducted. I was not abducted. I shouldn't have said that. That was bad. But yeah, just go back in there. Like I said, just said there, it'll remove it. So if it just blanked out, it automatically does that. That's why I highly recommend it. But we used to use a system called Audacity. And Audacity
is a great system, and it's made for music though. So make sure you don't want to throw a great company under the bus. But it made Casey's life hard, and when we switched to video, it made it almost impossible.
Yeah, because it's great. But if I said, let's say I said, it probably just cut out there again. So I'm sorry. Pretend I said random filler word.
Rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros. Yeah, that's what I said. I would have to manually go in and edit that out, and I had to listen to the podcast. The whole episode. So like you guys would be listening in, I had to listen in. So let's say we had this 3-hour episode, I think one time.
3.5. That was the longest episode. Jeff Galvin. AGT, the man is working. You can look up American Gene Technologies. He and his team are through 7 patient trials, and fully, as far as we know so far, they have a lot more tests to run, but these people are being cured of HIV. So it's the first company. A lot of companies have claimed it. This is the only company that's been delivering.
I'm excited.
Hence the long episode.
Yeah. But I had to manually listen into that and take out all the rhinoceroses manually. So that was fun, kind of fun. But so now it's a lot simpler. Just that's just a little background on how the podcasts work. It's a little weirder because we're sitting right next to each other. If you're not watching on YouTube, which you should,
subscribe too. I always forget to tell people that. Just click subscribe and you'll be notified when new episodes are released.
Click that little bell icon too.
Yeah.
Get automatically notified. But what happens, this is what kind of happens behind the scene. I'm gonna have him go in detail here in a second about how we interview guests and all that. But essentially what we do here is, how it works is he sits on one side and the guest sits on the other side of the screen. So you don't really see both of us, or the interviewee and interviewer in the same screen. We're doing that now, so you kind of get a good picture of how we talk and who we are and our character traits by watching the YouTube video. Right now, you can see his wonderful apartment and all that. So let's go back into how the podcast works.
So basically, we get guests, which people ask me, that must be the number one question. Where do you get your guests? Yeah. And it truly is just God brings them. Like I'll meet somebody, I'll find a stranger and I'm like, man, there's something about them. There's something, everybody's got a story in them. Everybody has something special, but sometimes God just is like, go talk to that person. So I do. And then other times I got our website, davidpasqualone.com/guest info. People find that, people listen to our podcast. We've been blessed. I think, again, without even making a hard effort, we're in there's 2.8 million podcasts in the world, and we're in the top 2% of all podcasts, all countries. And that's pretty, so I'm proud of that, but I didn't do it. We did our best. God brings the increase, but people will find us and they'll reach out to us. So they go to that web link and then we get about 100 apps a month. And then I set up calls with people who I think are even, they fit the profile. And then there's that profile and stereotype again. No. They fit the profile. And then once you have a 10, 15-minute conversation with them, so that eats time. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of time that goes into this. And then those people, we schedule the interview. Then once the interview's scheduled, we're actually have a backlog of about 2 to 3 months. Like I just looked at the calendar. If someone met me today and I'm like, oh, let's do it. We can't even record until December. And right now it's July 24th, 2nd.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, God's been good to us, and he's always good. When we think things are bad, he's still good. When we think things are great, he's still good. But I'm just using that as an example. So then a guest and I agree it's a good fit for both of us. And a good fit means it's going to glorify God. It's going to help our community grow, help our community, you know, be encouraged and be able to connect and not just hear what they achieved, but how they did it in practical steps. And then we record their episode and then release it. And we're back and forth on that. We've gone from record today, release tomorrow, which is hyper stressful, to, oh, there's a 3 or 4 month backlog. So we're trying to get it where we're 2 weeks from the time we record to the time we release. That's our goal, right? That's our goal for season 6.
It's my attempted goal.
That's what we are going to accomplish that for season 6, because I'm tired of the stress and the waiting. So we're going to accomplish
That's
it.
all me though.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who caused all the stress. You're 3 months ahead. I'm 3 months
yeah.
behind. I'm working on them.
We'll get it. But anyway, so that's how it works. And then when the episode airs, when the episode gets recorded, I don't talk to the guests. So if you're listening to me now and you've heard other episodes, we don't talk to the guests in depth. I do enough research to make sure it's legit as much as I can do, and then make sure and think, 100 episodes, I've only had 1 episode with an issue. So I thank God for that, right? And that episode's been pulled. But other than that, we try to make the conversation as organic as possible. It's just like 2 friends having a cup of coffee, smoking a cigar, getting to know each other. So you and I and them are all in a room together, just getting to know each other. And then we go through their story, and it's just chronological from birth to today. And then we not only hear what they achieved or overcame, but then we break it down in practical steps, how they got to this point of success or overcoming this huge hurdle. So we can too. And these episodes have helped me. They've personally benefited my life. I made friends all over the world, and it's been fantastic. So even on the other side of this camera, even though I don't see 105 countries worth of people, I'm thankful I get to do this. This is a fantastic opportunity. But for you as the listener, I hope you love it. And if you can't give us a 5-star review in Apple or Chartable or Spotify or Listener Notes or YouTube, write me why, so we can make the show better for you. This truly is to glorify God and to help you grow and to know him more. So after we interview the guests, we always transition at the end. Where's the guest today and where are they heading? So now we as listeners can help them get there. And then after that, we close the episode. Intern Casey does his fantastic job, and then we bring it to you.
It was more like I attempt to do a fantastic job. It's really the program that does most of it.
Yeah, well, we'll work on him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we're going to get him. We realize we just got this new t-shirt. If you're watching, this is the season 5 art, and Casey's got a season 2. So we got to bump him up. We're going to order him a custom season 5 artwork.
Well, mine says Remarkable Intern Casey on it.
I know, we'll get you that. And if
backwards. So.
And as our listener, if you want some swag, go to our website, davidpasqualone.com, check out the shop. And in there, we have the Remarkable People podcast swag. So you can get your own, and we'd be honored if you would wear it and pimp it around town. That's actually some of the coolest stuff. I've been all over the country for work, and people have heard of my podcast, and, they've known me. And then I'm with my son who does social media, what's it called?
He's an influencer.
Influencer. Sorry. To me, he's Johnny. He's my son. But to other people, it's like, oh, Johnny Pasqualone. And then for me, people were down a trip in Miami, and they're geeking out over him. And then people are geeking over me, and we're both like, this is so weird. I'm Dave, you're Johnny. That's it. We're nothing more. That's it. But it is cool to meet people who listen to the show, who watch us online, and then to hear the change it's made in their life, or, inspired them to start businesses, or inspired them to, they've had a bad relationship with their mom or dad for years, and it was a catalyst to get them to get back in there, or whatever it is. They were abused as a child. I had one person, all sorts of stories that I get to hear privately that obviously I can't share on air.
Yeah.
But it's a blessing. And the artwork, the shirts, a couple times I was going through drive-throughs, like a drive-through of McDonald's, and a Remarkable People podcast sticker was on the glass window from the inside. That means an employee put it there. And I was like, this is so cool. This is just awesome. And I've been through other drive-throughs and bathroom stalls. So people ask for our stickers and I send them out.
And it's free?
Yeah. If you want a free sticker, write me. We'll send them to you and just put them wherever you see fit. I mean, don't break the law, quote, quote, air quotes with my fingers, but do what you got to do to help promote the podcast, right? So it's been good. No, but seriously, it so encourages me when you go, like I was at the fairgrounds one time, I went to the bathroom and boom, there was my sticker on the back of the door. You know, I was like, yeah, I like this.
That's really some upfront advertising, isn't it?
It is. It's a way. No, the intent of the sticker was just like, you know, you put on your own personal stuff.
Yeah.
But when people stick them around town, because when you ask for a sticker, we're paying for the postage, we're paid for the stickers. We'll throw like 5 or 6 of them in there and ship them out. So they get extras and send me pictures for where you post them. That would be awesome.
Speaking of, where do they? What's your link to send stuff to you or have them?
If you want a sticker, just go to davidpasqualone.com. Go to the contact us page, and then there's actually a drop down for stickers, and you just hit send me stickers and put in your information. I'll send them to you.
What about reviews though? Where do people go to review?
Oh, okay. Like so for reviews, not all podcast directories allow you to leave reviews. So, excuse me, Spotify, Chartable, Listener Notes, and really Apple Podcasts, even though they don't treat us well. If you leave a review on Apple, if you don't mind, just take a screenshot, send me a copy, just so I have a backlog if we ever decide to sue them for bias and illegal censorship. If there's an attorney out there, give me a holler. No, I don't want to go through a lawsuit, but they're scumbags. God, I'll take care of them. But yeah, so that's it. So you can leave reviews. Basically, if you listen to the show on a podcast player, check if your podcast player has a rating system. And if you can, it will be a huge honor to leave us a 5-star review. And I always say, and I mean it, if we can do something better, let me know. I am totally open to change for the good. And I want to make sure we're taking good wisdom and applying it. So any ideas you have are more than welcome. I do not own all the good ideas in the world. That is for sure.
Oh, it's definitely not me.
Yeah.
I get all the bad ideas in my head. I'm like, they're like at work, what's the dumbest thing we can do? Let's ask Casey. He knows exactly. He's so dumb, it'll make me think of something smart. So I'm like the dumb guy. So that way we get all the smart ideas. So whenever Dave thinks of something really smart, it's only because I thought of all the dumb stuff we could do.
He cleaned the closet.
Cross that out. And last remaining is one I did not think of. It's the one Dave implements and it works.
That's it. We do the whiteboarding and brainstorming, and I make sure he lists everything, and we do none of that.
I think your dog's pushing the.
Oh, she is.
Yeah.
All right, let's readjust. Mavis, thank you. Sorry, people, if you're watching. All right, go ahead. What else we got? We want to cut this.
What's the future of the podcast? What are we looking at? What's the destination we're going to?
Okay, destination. I never talk about numbers of downloads because I don't want to get obsessed. I am a super competitive person to myself. I am super goal driven. And I think you can attest in the seasons we've been working together, I don't ever talk about that because I want to make sure we're bringing the best content and we are reaching as many people as we can, but we're not obsessing about numbers. So we do our work, God brings the increase. In season 6, I want to reintroduce season 1 and 2. We had sponsors. It was awesome. I didn't go after them. They came to us. In seasons 3, 4, and 5, I've been too busy. So I just self-funded the show, paid it out of my pocket. And it costs money per episode. It costs money. I mean, it's not cheap. So I think in season 6, we're going to reintroduce sponsors just to cover the hard costs. Not like we're cashing in, make a little extra, we'll pay our intern. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and I might invest in more and actually marketing the show. Like we've let it grow organically. So now, you can pay Facebook to advertise. You can pay Google to advertise. You can pay people to advertise. And again, we're not looking for the world's approval. We're not looking for status, but I want to have killer numbers in the sense of reaching more people. Like the more downloads you have, the more people are listening. The more people listening, the more people are hearing truth that's going to help them grow. So I don't ever need to be on Time Magazine's cover. Actually, after the people they've had, I probably don't want to be on Time Magazine's cover. But I do want to help as many people as I can. And whether people know my name or not, that doesn't bother me, but I just want to help people. So that's the goal, kind of take it to the next level in season 6 and really crank it up.
So this is off the brand, but weren't you kind of thinking of having the podcast, right? And maybe going off of that and having a new company? Remember talking about that.
We actually have another, thank you, Casey, for bringing this up. We have a second podcast we started, and it's called Hanging Out with David Pasqualone and Friends. Right now, we have about 7 episodes recorded. And when we get 10 episodes recorded, I'm going to go ahead and release that as a separate parallel podcast. And what that does is it's people that maybe weren't on the Remarkable People podcast, but the format's more direct, like, hey, what's going on in your life? What's happening now? How can we help each other? And it's kind of that type of story. But then it's also an opportunity where we could bring guests back on from the Remarkable People podcast that you've already heard their story, but now they tell you what the update is. So like, for instance, we mentioned Jeff Galvin, and he's working on the cure for cancer. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I want to be updated on that and what's going on. I mean, the cure for HIV, not cancer. And he's working on that actively. But then we have so many other guests that are phenomenal and changing the world for the better. We want to bring them back on and we want to re-interview them. The reason why that podcast hasn't been released yet is because I'm blunt. I've been just busy. There's 24 hours in every day, 366 days in the best year. The other 6 years have 365. So we all have the same amount of time, and we just got to use it to the best of our ability. And right now, to the best of my ability, is a Remarkable People podcast. But soon we will have Hanging Out.
Okay, I wasn't even talking about that. I totally forgot about that. I was talking about interviewing people for like the memorial kind of thing. So like, that's what I was talking about.
That's a business venture, and that did stem from this. We've had several people who have used the podcast to write books from. So they took their episode and sent it to like a ghostwriter. I don't know if you know this, but most people, especially famous people, don't write their books. They sit down, they have a discussion, they record it, and then a ghostwriter goes and types stuff in. And most of them embellish a lot, right? So your favorite Hollywood actor who wrote a book, they didn't write that book. But anyways, it's the story of their life, quote unquote. But what happened was, so we had several people use this to write books, like legit content. And then we had several people take it and they embed on their website as a autobiography of their life. So their clients and visitors know who they are. Well, that got me thinking that why don't we provide this as a service to people who are older and they want to record their stories and they want to record their basically legacy. And they don't want it to die, and they want to be able to bring this for generations of their family. So we started, I haven't finished naming it. I haven't even really released it yet, but Legacy Autobiographies is, Legacy Video Audio Biographies is where we're at right now with it. But basically we've done one, and the gentleman was able to sit down, and we sat right there in that chair behind me because he was local. And for 5 hours, we just talked and had a good time. And his son was off camera, kind of helping his memory. And now his family has that forever. So that was a business venture that might come out of the podcast. But again, it wasn't planned. And that is people paying for it, and it's completely private. But that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. Just so you guys know that we don't make these videos or this podcast, and we don't learn from it. So this is a great example. That's why I wanted Dave to spill it. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what question I was going to ask him. That was right off the top of my head. He's mad. He's going to be mad at me.
No,
you didn't need to spill that. But so we know that when we listen to these, we grow also. So when we interview, we grow also. We grow with you guys. So the more people we interview, especially small business people, through the podcast and everything, we grow like that. So this is a practical example of us growing together and having that awesome. I'm doing this weird curve motion in my hand. So if you're on the podcast, you can't see it. Woo! Should probably stop talking now.
Squirrel.
You
just got distracted.
I know.
All right, but anyways, so any other questions, Intern Casey, before we take this episode to a close?
Okay, so we talked about the podcast going on, right? What we want to hear where you personally, outside the podcast, are looking at going. So you moved here recently, Pensacola, Florida. Well, I shouldn't say recently. You moved down from Oregon. We're here. What's the next direction? Is the podcast gonna be a full-time thing? Are you gonna keep doing your own personal business on the side? What are we looking at?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. The podcast, as far as I know, will continue. The Remarkable People podcast. We will continue to bring great content, and just with the intent to share and be a tool that people can use to have that healthy catalyst in their life so they can overcome and have healing in so many of the areas. And it's going to be, real content. Like, all our episodes are evergreen. You can go back and search for a topic. You can search for a guest name. You can search for a keyword, and you can get help. So, like, for me, I've struggled with depression for years. And when our guests talk about how they did it, man, it's such a blessing. And I've employed multiple of the guest suggestions, and it's just bettered my life. So professionally, I'm a sales and marketing consultant. I mean, we do strategy, we do coaching, we do website design. And my next step is to bring the company to the next level. So I've gone consciously without employees. And now you're calling me out, so there's accountability. My next step is to actually bring employees on where I still oversee and maintain a high level of quality for my clients, but to bring employees on so we help keep our clients growing. And then with the client growth, we can help more clients. So I don't ever want to have me personally, I don't want to have a massive organization with 300 employees or 3,000 employees or 30,000 employees. I want to help a few families we can be close knit with, get things done, help our clients, and see everybody in our inner circle thrive and grow. I won't work with clients just for money. There has to be substance to it. So my personal, clients, I have very few clients. I work with them regularly. We have consistent growth, and we have personal relationships. So again, I'm a marketing anomaly. I'm a marketing guy who doesn't market. I just all referrals, all word of mouth, all friends or friends of friends who become friends. And I've had the same clients for years, and that's a testament to God and each other that, we might like each other at times, we might not like each other at times, but we're honest with each other and we're real. And most of the time we have a great time. We have a lot of fun. So, but that's it. So yeah, so that's where I'm going, just kind of grow the next level. And I want to get back in shape, another accountability. Haven't worked out since 2018. Need to get in shape so I can keep up with, life and be strong and healthy. And then I want to travel more. So these BS COVID restrictions are a bunch of crap all over the world. Can't take a cruise, can't go to certain countries because I'm not taking that fake vaccine. So you learn a lot about me now. But yeah, I don't believe the vaccine works. I don't believe mask works. I don't believe COVID was naturally caused. I believe it was made by man. So that is what I believe. And if you don't agree with me, that's fine. We have the ability to disagree. But right now, the people who don't agree with me are keeping me from traveling. And that makes me very angry.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Apple bans us. in 2 sentences is exactly why.
No.
This is exactly
the one
why.
word, why? God.
Oh, okay.
They're against God. Their whole logo is the apple with a bite out of it, ladies and gentlemen. You know what that represents? Go read Genesis, the defiance of Eve in the garden biting that apple and Adam.
Some conspiracy theory right there.
It's not. It is.
No, we don't need to get canceled by Apple.
I don't care. God will continue us on. We don't need Apple. We don't need Google. Granted, they make life easier right now today, but at some point, buddy, we're all going to be taken off.
Oh, yeah.
The government's going to control the internet. They're going to censor what they want. It's going to be, Hitler just in a different form at a larger scale. And those people might have fun for a few years on Earth, but they're going to burn in the lake of fire for eternity. So, sorry. Read Revelation. It explains it all.
1984.
Yeah. George Orwell.
Great book. I can't read it in school now, though. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know what we're talking about, there's a book by George Orwell called 1984, and there's so many other books out there, so many other movies, and they predicted everything happening because it all comes from the Bible. And people say, I don't want to learn history. Well, you're a moron, because if you don't know history, you're bound to repeat it. And even as a Christian, you need to figure something out. Look at the Bible. The Bible was written by over 40 different men and women over hundreds of years who spoke different languages in different countries, didn't know one another. And when it came together, it aligns perfectly. No flaw, no contradiction, right? Within that book, there's Old Testament and New Testament. The dividing line is Christ's crucifixion. So before Christ is the Old Testament, after Christ's death, burial, and resurrection, we have the New Testament, right? Now, the Old Testament is 2/3 of the Bible. The New Testament is 1/3. There's a lot of emphasis that God put on the stories and the history so we can know the future. So if you're breathing, you should be paying attention to history so you know where the future is going. And right now, our governments around the world are very corrupt. And not just the normal political corruption, to a one world order corruption that the Bible talks about. So we can talk about that in another podcast.
Yeah. One world religion, one world order. It's all in there. If you don't believe me, look what the Pope's building in somewhere in the Arabic world. It's called the One Religion building. Just look it up. Okay. That's all you have to do. It's very interesting.
Very scary and very encouraging. Just depends on which side of the debate you're on.
Yeah.
So that's it, man. Any other questions before we close this up?
You know what? I'm not that good of an interviewer, so we're just gonna call it here. But I'm glad we got an hour of content.
Yeah, man. No, it's been fun. Hopefully you found value in this. And if not, you will find value next week when we pick up with Victoria Vogue. So I'm David Pasqualone. This is Intern Casey, and we are thankful you're here. We're thankful to share 100 episode celebration with you. And if we can help you in any way, please don't hesitate to ask. You can reach out to me on the website, davidpasqualone.com. You can reach out to me through the contact us page, and we will do anything we can to help you. Other than that, we will catch you in next week's episode. And between now and then, feel free to go back and binge listen to the other 99 episodes out there. All right? Have a great day. We love you. And like our slogan says, don't just listen to great content, but do it, repeat it each day so you can have a great life in this world and more than anything, an eternity to come. So again, I'm David Pasqualone. This is
Casey Whitaker.
And we'll catch you next week. Ciao.
The Remarkable People Podcast. Check it out. The Remarkable People Podcast. Listen, do, repeat. For life.